And so in that moment, I don't know what switched for me, but I just started feeling bad for my skin. I just started feeling bad for myself because it made me reflect. I'm like, how did I get here? Because I've purged from peels before. And let me say, this wasn't the peels fault. This wasn't my esthetician's fault. This was something that, again, it's an unfortunate lesson I had to learn, but it taught me a lot. This was me needing to back the fuck off. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of She's in Sync, the podcast for women looking to have a safe transition off birth control and heal their hormones naturally. Today, I'm going to be sharing a personal story, a personal update, and it's another vulnerable one. It's one where I've been very open and honest about my own acne healing journey and the ups and downs that I've had. And as someone who treats women with acne, that can feel really hard and scary because, you don't want people to basically be like, oh, well, she can't figure out her own skin, so like, I'm not going to work with her. When in reality, it's like, I know that makes me a stronger clinician because I deeply understand the healing journey and the ups and downs physically, mentally, emotionally that come with it. And that's why I want to share this, because a couple weeks ago, I had another, I don't want to say setback, I will say another experience that really taught me a lot and I think is important for you all to hear. So, if you're someone who has struggled with any chronic skin condition or any really chronic condition at all, I'm sure you can relate to this. Because we're going to be talking a little bit about how the nervous system plays into all of this, how the beliefs of like, I'm never going to heal, it's never going to get better. Also, how being stuck in fight or flight is keeping your symptoms stuck. And also a little bit of health anxiety, because those were all things that came up for me a couple of weeks ago that got me to this point, recording this podcast. So let me back it up and tell you a little bit of what we're talking about, the actual story here. So several weeks ago, I was supposed to go wedding dress shopping, and I did go wedding dress shopping. I found the dress, guys. It is not at all what I was expecting. If you want to see it, feel free to shoot me a DM on Instagram and I will send it your way. I've sent it to a couple clients who commented already, but yeah, it was totally different. Then the only thing I stayed consistent with is I love a low back. And so I did stay consistent with that. So besides that though, it's my favorite. It's beautiful. I found it at the second place that I went. We went to 4 places. So my parents and Jared's parents came down, the guys hung out, and then me and the moms went wedding dress shopping on Friday and Saturday. So it was the second place we went, and it's funny because she pulled it from the rack. So a lot of these places, if you've gone wedding dress shopping before, you might have known this, but this was surprising to me. A lot of places you don't do the shopping yourself. They like take your info and what pictures you send them and what you think you like, and they do the shopping for you, and they present you with a couple dresses or a combination of you shopping, them shopping, whatever. So this particular place, they did all the shopping for you, which at first I didn't like, because I was like, well, I want to see what all is here and I want to pick out what I want to pick out, right? And she picked out this dress, and originally when I saw it on the rack, I was like, that's ugly. I was like, that's ugly. I don't like that. But then I tried it on and I was like, wow, I really like this. And then I went out and my mom and Jared's mom were like, oh my gosh, that's so pretty. And it wasn't one of those moments where I was like, oh, this is it. I know it's it. Because I still had 2 more places to go. So I was like, well, let's go to those other places tomorrow. And then I went to those 2 places and I kept comparing to that dress. And I was like, man, there's nothing else that compares to that dress. So that's when you know that was the dress. So I went back and I got that. So I did check that off my wedding bucket list. So we've got our venue and we've got our cake, because that comes with the venue that we chose. And then we've got the wedding dress. So we are making our way. We're about we're about 13 months out. So next step is photographer, florist, all that kind of stuff. But anyways, before that magical moment of finding my wedding dress, the week before, my skin broke out so bad. So bad. And if you're watching this video, you can see already it's cleared up majorly. I still have a couple spots that are just making their way through. This was 3 weeks ago that I purged really bad, but it's gotten tremendously better. And that's another reason I wanted to record this podcast episode. I know I'm giving lots of like little bits and pieces without giving you the full story yet. So just keep listening. I'm getting there. I'm just beating around the bush a little bit here. But my skin broke out because I got a chemical peel the Friday before, or 2 Fridays before. And if you've never gotten a chemical peel before, the reason I was getting it was because I had a couple of red spots. So typically my skin doesn't really break out very much anymore unless it's irritated, like retinol. If you're interested in that, I have a whole episode on how my skin did not agree with retinol. And that was a learning experience for me. And that was a low with my skin that I learned from. Or if I'm like pushing my skin too hard. But typically, because I have all of my root causes under control, my gut, my minerals, working on stress, which we'll talk about, my skin doesn't really break out the way that it used to. But when it does, I know it's something for me to listen to. It's not something for me to get upset about. I still do sometimes because I'm human, but it's something that my skin is communicating with me. And I don't freak out because I'm like, okay, I can do the testing. I know I've cleared this before, things like that. But this time was a little bit of a different story because I went in there for the redness. So I went in to get the chemical peel for the redness was my point of that, not for active acne, because I was chasing perfect skin. I was chasing perfect skin again. And this is very similar to my retinol story where my skin was pretty much clear and I had like maybe a couple breakouts here and there, but I had like some lingering redness from having acne for, since I was 13, right? Like, and only I didn't get to my root causes and clear my skin until about three years ago right before I opened my own business, because that's my journey to clearing my skin was what inspired me to open my own business. So I was my own first client. So, I was dealing with years of skin that had been through the ringer with acne treatments and chronic acne and all these internal root causes that were left unaddressed that were making it harder for my skin to heal. But I was chasing perfection. So even though my skin had cleared, 80, 90%, my brain was like, well, that's not good enough. And I truly believe part of that had to do with the comparison trap of seeing all these filters online and like women with perfect skin. And then also, quite frankly, my job, like I said, when I first, started this episode of like the pressure I was putting on myself to have perfect skin, because I felt like if I don't have perfect glass skin, someone's going to be like, I don't want to work with her because she doesn't have perfect skin and I want perfect skin. So like, why should I work with her? I say that and it's like embarrassing, but at the same time, like I just want to be real with you guys. Like that's what was going through my head. And in reality now, I'm like, A, there is no such thing as perfect skin. Like B, everyone has skin issues. And I personally would rather work with a provider who has gone through that herself and learned from that versus someone who's only just ever has perfect skin and like they don't understand what that's like to get a breakout. And I really value when people are open and honest about things. And so that is the energy and the leadership that I want to bring to my clients is like not just talking about the good, but also talking about the messy and talking about the hardships that come along with a root cause healing and an evolving healing journey, because we are never chasing perfection. And that is something I thought I learned from my retinol journey, but this was, I think, the icing on the cake with that. And so I did that chemical peel to try to eliminate a little bit of redness. I laugh back now because I look at pictures before the chemical peel and I was like, girl, you had like great skin. Like, what were you doing? And then you just like messed it up. And the first week my skin was peeling, it was fine. And then right afterward, I remember waking up, I was giving a presentation to a bunch of counselors and mental health providers. And right before this presentation, my right side of my chin, this is like my problem area, I woke up that day and there were tons of bumps. They weren't pimples yet, but there were tons of bumps. And I was like, oh shit, I know what this means. It means a purge is a-coming. And so I went to the presentation, gave the presentation, and then sure enough, that Saturday, or even honestly, like by the end of the day, like some started coming to a head. And I remember thinking, oh, great. Because this had kind of been happening. I was getting peels or intensive treatments month after month after month before. Again, in the quest for perfect skin, I was never giving my skin a breather. And I think the retinol situation amplified that. And again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm not going to rehash it all. I have an episode on this, but I tried retinol last year, actually around this time, and my skin, it just wrecked my skin. And I kept waiting because everyone kept saying like, that's normal. Get through the purge, you'll not regret it. But then it kept coming and coming and coming and not going away. And finally, I just learned it just isn't right for my skin. And I've later learned that a lot of people with acne prone skin can't tolerate retinol. So if you are someone listening and you've tried it because it's like the gold standard, like the miracle product, and you couldn't tolerate it or you couldn't get through the purge, you are not alone in that. Your skin just might not be able to tolerate it. But because I went through that and I had a lot of these red marks, and I had that layer of like wanting to have perfect skin and thinking it would affect my business or my credibility, like all this bullshit, it kept leading me to just attack my skin and layer that on with just still I had more trust in my body because I healed my skin again 90 to 95% of the time, healed my skin. And I knew, and I've helped, so many other women, dozens and dozens of women at this point, heal their skin with a root cause. But I still had this little bit of distrust in myself. And that's where the health anxiety came in, where I was like feeling like I needed to constantly exfoliate, or whenever I did get a pimple, I would like attack it. Like I would use benzoyl peroxide and then I'd layer on benzoyl peroxide and I do sulfur spot treatment and my skin would start flaking, it would get red, but I was like, okay, I'm just drying it out. But I didn't give my skin time to breathe with these intensive treatments and with all these topicals I was doing. And then I added azelaic acid in because that can help with redness. And I was just doing too much. And the reason I was doing it was because I was chasing perfection. I was self-conscious of my skin. Like that's what it comes down to. I was self-conscious of my skin, thinking that if I don't have perfect skin, I'm not going to be able to, like, women aren't going to want to work with me because they don't think I have my shit together with my skin. I'm going to have less credibility, blah, blah, blah. The stories in my head went on and on. And if you've ever had acne, you understand those stories, right? It might be that I'm like never going to find a partner because no one's going to find me attractive. It's going to be like at my job, like people are going to think I'm like less credible. Like maybe it's in relation to like what I was feeling with my job, even if you're not in this position where you're helping other people clear their skin. Maybe you feel similar ways or whatever the story is for you. We tell ourselves these stories because it's on our face, right? It's not like something you can hide. And so I think that's where acne is just so unique that unless you have been through it, you don't understand it. And again, I think that's what now I realize is a strength of mine versus a weakness of someone who just has perfect skin all the time, right? So the purge starts and I didn't start freaking out. I didn't start freaking out very much because I was like, okay, I knew this would happen, but the timing sucked. The timing sucked because of wedding dress shopping. So this was something that I was looking forward to. And, the parents were coming up. I had to pay to go to some of these places. Like I was not rescheduling it. But I would spend the whole day looking in the mirror, trying on dresses and trying to imagine myself in my dream wedding dress at my wedding the following year and try not to focus on my skin. And that was really tough. And so in that moment, I don't know what switched for me, but I just started feeling bad for my skin. I just started feeling bad for myself because it made me reflect. I'm like, how did I get here? Because I've purged from peels before. And let me say, this wasn't the peels' fault. This wasn't my esthetician's fault. This was something that, again, it's an unfortunate lesson I had to learn, but it taught me a lot. This was me needing to back the fuck off, okay? We're going to use a lot of language in here. This was me needing to back off because it was me pushing myself too hard with my skin, chasing perfection, as I've said multiple times already. And it wasn't just with my skin. It was with everything. It was with everything. I realized in my business, I was pushing myself really hard. I was holding myself to way too high of standards and like just grinding myself to the ground. And, being a business owner is not for the faint of heart, and you're doing a million different things all the time. And I would not have it any other way. I love my business. I love the women I work with. I wake up every single day excited, most every single day, excited to work. Not many people can say that. I absolutely adore what I do and the impact that I'm making in women's lives. And there's a lot that goes into that, right? Like I'm my marketing person. I'm the clinician. I'm the HR person. Not really HR. I mean, I guess I'm HR for myself, but I'm like the customer support person. That's what I'm looking for. I'm the customer support person. I'm everything. I'm the financial person. I'm the decision-making person for everything and supporting these women in my world. And so it's just is not for the faint of heart. I will say that. But the reason I'm saying that is because this has been taking a toll on my health. And I would classify myself as a workaholic, and it's been something I've been trying to work on. And this just was a culmination of things where I realized I was pushing myself too hard with my skin, too hard with work. I wasn't I wasn't playing. I wasn't like I had a podcast episode with Carrie, who I'm now working with for nervous system stuff. And she made a good point of like, how often are you, like, not me specifically, we were just talking about like, how often are you playing, like doing something you love? And like for me, my whole life has been about productivity. It's been about getting stuff done. It's been about, planning ahead. It's been about, thinking through my next step. And it's never been about like stopping and resting or stopping and doing what I want a lot of the time. And I've just always been a kind of like intense person where it's like, I've changed with this, but I used to like, the workouts I would only do were like cardio, sweaty, intense. Like the music I would listen to, even when I wasn't working out, was like upbeat, hip hop, pop, like loud. I was just always like in constant fight or flight. And it wasn't until right around this time, I sent in an updated HTMA test, which is a hair tissue mineral analysis. And the cool thing about the HTMA, it not only shows your mineral levels, but it shows your nervous system patterns. So it shows, are you constantly stuck in sympathetic, fight or flight? Are you stuck in parasympathetic, rest and digest? Are you, in burnout? It can show you so much cool information about your nervous system. And this was my third HTMA. This was my third HTMA in 3 years. So I do it yearly on myself. And my numbers, some of them improved, but I was still a fast 2, which a fast 2 metabolic type means you're sympathetic dominant, you're stuck in fight or flight, and my sodium was really high, and my potassium and my magnesium and my calcium were really low. So 3 out of my 4 macro minerals were depleted, and my sodium was really high, which means that I was in a state of fight or flight. Like my adrenals were basically pumping out cortisol. So it's showing a state of extreme stress. And I was nervous to rerun the HTMA on myself because I have worked so hard with repleting my minerals with like mineral mocktails, supplements, foods. I eat so many potassium-rich foods because when I started, my potassium was 1. Potassium is so important for your skin, for your thyroid, for your metabolism, like everything. And so I was working really hard on that. So I ran that HTMA finally to see where I was. And I wasn't surprised, but I was still disappointed. And this was another light bulb moment. So now that I'm talking about it, I feel like there were like multiple light bulb moments that kind of like within the past month have like come on, or, have like come to fruition, or made me just like shake and be like, okay, like I need to figure this out. So my HTMA came back still a fast 2. It had not changed. Ideally, you want to be closer to like a fast 1. And my minerals were still depleted. There were some improvements, but overall things kept getting lower and my sodium kept getting higher. So there was more of this imbalance and more of this stress response. And the only thing is stress. Like I knew it in my gut. I knew in my gut that was the issue, because there have also been times where I feel my heart beating out of my chest and my brain is going a million miles an hour. I have a million tabs pulled up. One time, like a couple of months ago, I was like in my head, and I think it was a weekend or maybe it was a Friday because Jared was at home. He works from home on Friday. And I took Blue for a walk and I left the front door. Like I opened the front door, we left, and I didn't close the front door. Like I just spaced and like didn't close the front door. And so thankfully Jared was home and he like came out and he like yelled at me. He was like, hey, like you forgot to close the front door. And I like look up and I was like I was on my phone. I was like checking Slack or something like that. And I just like completely spaced. And like that's a sign of like nervous system dysregulation. So like it wasn't surprising that my levels were like that, but it was a necessary like, hey girl, like this is something you can't keep ignoring, because if you're chasing these lab values, like if you want your labs to improve, you need to fix this. And this is like the non-sexy stuff you've been avoiding for your entire life. And so the HTMA levels not improving and getting a little bit worse despite all the minerals I'm doing, all the like, everything I'm doing. That was a wake-up call for me. And then my skin just freaking out after these peels. It's like my body is clearly giving me these signs to like back the fuck off. Back the fuck off. And I just had to get to that place where my body was screaming at me to listen. And so even as an expert, we are not perfect and we are fighting our own battles with these things. And that makes us stronger. That makes me understand my clients more, because it's not that simple as just here's a protocol, do it. There's so many nuances and there's so many life things that get in the way. And this brings me back to, the nervous system stuff. And this whole experience made me realize I have some health trauma and some health anxiety. And if you're listening to this and you're kind of rolling your eyes, you're like, well, acne isn't trauma, or like, I don't know. If you're kind of like dismissive about it, I'm going to respectfully challenge that, because again, unless you've had it, like you don't understand the impact it makes on your entire life. And also, trauma doesn't have to be just big T trauma. It can be little T trauma. And when you've had acne, for your entire life and you finally clear it, but then it comes back, it can like all those emotions and all those feelings can, come rushing back. And I was talking to a client about this recently who she was bullied for her skin. And so that's eliciting a trauma response for her, as she's preparing to come off birth control and seeing how her skin does and all of that kind of stuff. Like she's really terrified about that. And I was like, I understand. I get it. I thankfully was not bullied for my skin, but it was more of like an internal bullying with myself for that. So it made me realize that I never realized that I might have health anxiety, and running labs on myself and trying to, attain perfect labs, which if I were a client, I would say like there is no such thing as perfect labs, right? But this was something with my H. pylori battle. It's like funny as I say that, I'm thinking of like me with a sword and like H. pylori in my stomach as a sword, but it's like it took me a while to eradicate that. And I truly think that was because of my nervous system. And so I'm very tempted, like not gonna lie, when I had this purge, I was like, oh shit, is H. pylori back? And I knew in my head, I'm like, that's ridiculous. This is clearly a purge from your skincare and you just attacking your skin and your barrier being off for all these years, or like recently from all these peels and stuff like that. But I recognize now, like that was my brain's way of protecting me, of being like, let's problem solve. Like, how are we going to fix this? Let's do some testing and try and fix it. Because I know I also have data that works. And my logical side of my brain, that was like my irrational side. My logical side of my brain was like, no, it's the peel. You need to back off. Like wait a couple months. And then if you're still breaking out, then you can run another GI map on yourself. And also the other layer with that, if theoretically I do have H. pylori again, I know because my nervous system, because if you're constantly stressed, it encourages the growth of good bacteria. Your gut microbiome is going to be imbalanced. So we have to that's why I talk all the time with women. We can't skip those foundational steps of eating enough and stress support. And so I've done a lot of work with stress support, and this experience showed me I need to level that up and I need to get support with that, because I'm not a therapist. I'm not a nervous system coach. And so Carrie Green and I had a conversation a couple weeks prior. Listen to her episode on the podcast. If you haven't yet, it's amazing. You're totally going to resonate, especially if you resonate with this conversation. But Carrie and I had her on the podcast talking about this, and I just love her vibe. I love her different approach to therapy. So she doesn't just do talk therapy. She relies on like physical movement and nervous system practices, and really goes deep into that to rewire your brain. because I've done talk therapy before and it wasn't helpful for me personally as someone who doesn't have a lot of trauma. We talked about my health anxiety and trauma and stuff like that, but like I did not find it very helpful, but many people do, right? So you need to find, just like with working with someone for these issues, you need to find someone who you jive well with and who you trust and who is like the perfect fit for you. So I felt like with Carrie, I was like, I feel like she's like the perfect fit for what I need in this moment. I could go the route of like trying to see a therapist with my insurance, but honestly, I had so much resistance to that. And my gut was like, nope, you need to invest in a higher way in yourself, not only for you, for your business, for your family. Like, I don't want to be at this place next year when I'm getting married. I don't want to be frazzled and dysregulated to the point where I'm walking out my door and forgetting to literally close the door. Like, I want to be in a place where I'm regulated. And I know that's going to be the next step to like the functional testing, the root cause protocols. That's what got me to 80 to 90% clear with my skin. And I know the last 10 to 20% is nervous system. Because I know that the reason my skin broke out and freaked out this time, it was because A, I've been under a lot of stress, self-inflicted, and B, I'm not regulating my nervous system, and C, because of all of that, my health anxiety came up of like, shit, I gotta have perfect skin. I gotta like, attack it and like really try and control it, and that worked against me. And so I made the decision to invest in high-level coaching with Carrie, and it's already been so helpful. I think I would love to kind of do like an update on that as we move through the program and maybe even have her on a little bit later again. But if you have any questions about it, like feel free to reach out to me on Instagram, shoot me a DM. I'm happy to share my experience. And obviously you can reach out to her too and just have a pressure-free conversation if that's right for you. But it's going to be really good. And as unfortunate as it was to have this happen, especially the week before wedding dress shopping, it was a really good reminder to me of A, what it feels like to break out and feel out of control again, even though I knew why it was happening and I knew my skin would bounce back eventually. Again, I'm 3 weeks in and like my skin looks much better. So I know in another month it'll look even better. But also it forced me to confront the root causes that I was ignoring: my nervous system, stress, perfectionistic thoughts, not trusting my skin. And one other side note I want to say too, one thing that I have learned so far from Carrie that's been really interesting, and you can start practicing as well. She said, start talking to your skin. So often we are just at war with our skin or our whatever symptom you're dealing with. And like I said, I was attacking it. Like I was drying it out. I was using all these products. I was going in for intensive chemical peels. I was just working against it for so long. And that's, like I said earlier, I got to this point where I was like, man, I feel so bad for my skin. It's been really trying to protect me. It's a detox organ. It was alerting me that I had, H. pylori, which can cause stomach cancer. It was just trying to protect me. And I just thought it was working against me for so long because I didn't know the inner workings of the root causes. And even when I did, I still didn't trust my skin to be able to heal on its own or work like it should be. I felt like I had to control it. So one thing she said is start talking to your skin. Just start talking to it like that. Like thank it for everything it does. And it doesn't have to be long. You don't have to believe it. That's one thing I asked. I was like, do you have to believe it? Because when you're, breaking out, when you're purging and you see all of those pimples on your face and you're just like probably not going to be like actually in love with your skin yet. But she was like, you don't have to believe it. It's kind of like faking it till you make it. But if you can do that, it will help. There's research, there's data behind it. She was saying, I haven't read it myself, but I trust her, that if you talk to your skin or your symptoms, like it will heal faster. And I will tell you, it sounds crazy. But if you're listening to this, you're probably a little bit woo like me. But I did that and like it made me feel better, like emotionally. But then I did notice my skin start to clear up. And I don't think it's a fluke. I think that actually worked. So that really is what I wanted to say about this is, there's a lot that I talked about here. Hopefully it's all coherent. Sometimes I feel like I don't have any outline for this episode. I just talked. So hopefully it made sense. But I have a feeling it did, and I have a feeling it resonated with people. And again, this is just something, if you are in the same boat as me, just know, first of all, if you haven't gotten functional testing to determine the root causes, do that, because that is going to be a whole new world and a whole new layer of answers for you. And then if you have and you're having maybe a flare, get curious, like, what is this telling you? For me, it was telling me you need to back the fuck off. You need to give your skin room to breathe. And that's one thing aside. I stopped using actives. So I was using all those actives in addition to, the chemical peels and stuff like that. So I took a whole week off of actives, and then I started bringing as I keep saying azelaic acid in every other day, which is more gentle. And now this week I'm doing it every day. And then I'm doing that for 2 weeks. And then after that, I will probably, I don't know, I'll ask my esthetician. I might bring Mandelic back in, but I don't think my skin needs benzoyl peroxide anymore. And my skin might not even, she said I might not even need Mandelic anymore. So for so long, I just thought I needed, because I had acne prone skin, needed all these products. And again, needed to control my skin. But this has taught me that I needed to give my skin time to do its own thing. And now that I address my root causes, I don't need to control it like I used to, which is really cool. And that's why this was a good learning experience in the end, even though it sucked. So if you're in that same boat, this is a good learning lesson of sometimes you don't need to push more. Sometimes you need to pull back. Sometimes you don't need to push more. You need to pull back, and you need to go back to foundations and give yourself room to breathe and not be perfect. So this has not only translated into, my skin healing, but this has also translated into my work with clients as well. And also in my business too. And just in life of being if I don't get 3 carousel posts out on Instagram next week, that's okay. If I just get 1 or 2, that's better than nothing. If it's not perfect, that's okay. Versus old me would have been oh, well, if I don't do that, then, someone's not going to see it who potentially was interested in working with me, and I lost a dream client, or, just things like that. And I'm girl, calm down. And that's why I'm really excited that I am working with Carrie, and I'm going to keep exploring. So if I've made these revelations within the past couple of weeks since that experience of breaking out really bad before wedding dress shopping, and it causing me to invest in working with her, getting my HMA results back, and being wow, you need to work on this. This is red flags right in front of you. I don't know what is. So again, hope this was helpful. If it was, please, please, please shoot me a DM on Instagram and let me know. And I would love, love, love if you would write a review or put a comment in YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. Whatever, just follow the show so you don't miss an episode. If this resonates and you want more, I release them every single Monday. But if you would be open to leaving some sort of review or, subscribing or liking, whatever, it really does help grow the show. I can't tell you how much that means to me. There's been a stall in reviews on iTunes. So if you would be so kind, if you're listening on iTunes, you don't have to write a long review. Just take a minute and write something that resonated with you or some feedback, because that really does help push this out to more women who need it. And that's why I do the show, because I just wanted to get this information out to more women who need to hear it and want support and want relief with their symptoms beyond birth control. So appreciate it so much, everyone. And until next time, stay nourished.